Karen and Nicole from Cal Poly Pomona SHPE. And yeah, whenever you guys are ready, feel free to share your screens and get started.
Can everyone see my screen? I don't know which screen are you seeing.
Yeah, I see the presentation slide.
Awesome, thank you. You ready, Nicole?
Yep, I'm ready.
Cool. All right. Hello, everyone. Welcome to our leadership recruitment presentation. We're going to be talking about how to recruit the next generation of SHPE leaders. But before we even get started on our presentation, a little bit of a brief intro about who we are, kind of what our experience is. My name is Karen Segura. I am the president for the Cal Poly Pomona SHPE chapter, and I've been involved in SHPE for about 3 years, 1 year as a member, and then 2 years on the executive board. And with me, I have Nicole.
Hello, everybody. I'm Nicole. I'm the current vice president of Cal Poly Pomona SHPE, and I've also been involved in SHPE for about 3 years. I actually did 3 years on the executive board as treasurer, president, and then vice president. And Karen and I have been working together in SHPE for quite a while now. All right, so today we're going to be taking you through this whole journey of starting out with new members all the way through them taking over your leadership position as you move on. So the main theme you're going to see throughout this whole presentation is just developing this relationship. We're going to be covering a lot of information, but if you just keep your hold on that idea of you're developing a relationship, it'll be easier to follow. And then you'll also see these little sticky notes throughout the presentation. And those are going to be for if you're not currently a leader, but maybe in the future you would like to be. These are the suggestions for you on how you can become a leader.
Cool. So let's start off this whole process by first recruiting your members, right? You can't train members or leaders if you don't have any. So we're briefly going to go over a little summary of what that looks like. It's gonna be a little vague, but we're gonna discuss it in our breakout room, so don't worry about it. So the first step is going to be knowing the needs of your chapter. So as you sit down as SHPE leaders, look at your demographics and see what you're lacking in. So do you need more freshmen? Do you need more transfer students? Are you missing a specific type of major, right? Identify that gap and know that that's what you're going to be looking for specifically during your recruitment season. Your second step is to do some sort of recruitment analysis. So again, sit down with your executive board and really analyze some of the strategies that you currently have for recruiting and identify the ones that have worked and the ones that do not work. Keep the ones that are obviously working. Those are going to be beneficial for you to continue. And for those that are not so working or not that successful, make sure that you are either scrapping them or you can reinvent them so they can be successful. And that will lead us to our last step. So implementing new ideas, right? Or revamping some of the old ones. For us, our SHPE chapter, we've tried a couple of things throughout the years, and we quickly wanted to share a couple of them that have worked for us. And if you haven't tried them out, you're more than welcome to do so as well. The first one being presentations at freshman engineering classes. Honestly, if you haven't done this already, ask. It's worth asking. Like and Emily was saying, the worst thing they could say is no. So definitely ask. And then one of the things that we've been exploring is offering technical projects for undergraduate members or lower classmen to be more specific. So look into these ideas. Really invent ideas that you think will be successful and will have a return investment. But this will all vary on your chapter and kind of like what your specialty is. And for you non-leaders or future leaders, you can also recruit as well. So don't think that recruiting is just for leadership. So recruiting can be as simple as just inviting a friend to come over to an event. Hey, I think you'd benefit from this event, or I think we should go to the social. It sounds really fun. Or you can volunteer at recruitment events. So typically pre-COVID, what would happen at recruitment events is you would have tables, right? During these events, whether it's like a little quad area or whatever, and you'd have your officers there recruiting. But typically what would happen is you slowly see that there's a little bolita starting to form of like your ship members. They're there to like hype you up or just even talk, right? You can recruit there as well. Hang out with the officers, get to see what they're doing, what they're saying, and then also feel free to pitch in. Tell them about your experience. Sometimes it's honestly way better to learn from the members who are participating than from the leaders, because they'll think that the leaders are a little biased. So don't be afraid to share what you know and what you like.
Alrighty, so the next step after you get your first members in is getting to know them. So what you want to do first, obviously, is introduce yourself and ask those typical like get to know you type questions. And the way we do this currently with this pandemic environment is we have a breakout session right before our general body meeting. When people first come in, we send them off into breakout rooms with our e-board, and the e-board kind of facilitates a little discussion, and we just chat like, oh, how was your week? If there's a new person, you introduce them, have them introduce themselves, have everybody in the room introduce themselves, and just get to know each other. The other thing that's really important to do is to introduce them to your foundational SHPE members. So these are the people who are always at your events. They're not on your executive board, but they're super friendly to new people, and they're really enthusiastic about SHPE and the SHPE mission and helping develop the chapter. And if you introduce them to those people, then those new members are going to feel really welcomed. So one thing that you do want to be careful about, though, as you're getting these people more involved in SHPE, is that you do want to invite them to SHPE and non-SHPE events. But if you only invite them to the SHPE events, it kind of looks like you're inviting them just because you're on the executive board, and it's really your job to recruit people and get them involved. And that can come off as a little bit unfriendly. You want to be more welcoming than that. You want to invite them to those more personal, friend to friend based hangouts. So one of the things that we've done is start a little hiking group that's unofficial. It happens to be mostly SHPE people who come, but it's not a SHPE event. Or we also have a movie night, and we all just hang out and watch movies. And it's not a SHPE event, it just happens to be SHPE people. And by inviting those new members to these events, you're showing them that you're not just inviting them because you have to, you're inviting them because you want to get to know them and you want to be friends with them. So that's a really good technique of helping people get more involved and feel more welcome. And then if you are not a current leader, one thing that you can do is get to know your chapter leadership. If you don't already know them, ask questions, they're pretty cool people typically. So just get to know them.
Yeah. Oh, perfect.
So now we're going to have a little activity for you guys, super quick. So we just want to hear your ideas. What are some questions you can ask someone that you've just met? You can shout them out or drop them in the chat. Anybody, just typical get to know you questions.
What's your name?
Excellent. You do want to know their name.
Yeah, love. What's your favorite food? We all love food, right? What's your major?
What's your major? That's a good one too. Do you have pets? Ooh, yes, that's a great one. Some people have really interesting
So
pets. Good
babies.
conversation starter.
Yeah, what are your favorite hobbies are also good ones, right? You might find out that they have the same exact favorite hobby as you, right? It's always good. Okay, cool.
All right, thank you.
All right. So now that you've gotten to know them a little bit more personal level, right? You've asked some of those questions. Now it's time for you to invest in them. And for me, I think the best way for you to find out what you need investing in is to ask for essential questions. So one, why did they join SHPE? People join SHPE for various reasons. So know why did they join. Number two, what's important to them? Really understand what they're dealing with and what are they prioritizing. So is family important to them? Is work, school, all those basics. The third one is, what are their priorities? Like I said, things are important. A lot of things are important to us, but they're important to us in different levels. So understand what that dynamic is like. Are they prioritizing school over work or school over clubs? Understand that. And the last one is, where do they want to be, right? It can be as simple as um, they want to become more involved in clubs, or they want to learn about research opportunities, or even they want to be a leader, right? And after you've asked these questions, it'll give you a good insight of where you can potentially invest and how to strategically invest in a person, right? You're not going to invest in something that's not important to them, um, when in reality they wanted to like focus more on school, right? Um, and the idea is that by knowing all this stuff, as chapter leaders, you're going to connect it back to your chapter. Your chapter is already hosting a lot of great programs like mentorship, your committees, study hours, networking socials. Use it to your advantage, right? Identify the areas that they're interested in and connect it to SHPE. So, for example, they say they want to become more involved in clubs, right? And you're like, oh my God, we have committees. We'd love to have you in clubs or in our committee. So let them know, hey, we actually have a tech committee and we have an open position. So would you be interested in joining? I heard you are interested in becoming more active, right? It doesn't hurt. Again, what's the worst they can say? No. Or maybe it can be something completely non-SHPE related. They're like, oh, I want to learn about research opportunities, right? I don't know exactly where to start, or I'm just confused on like how to get involved with research on campus. Connect them with mentorship, right? Find them a mentor who's in SHPE, who has done research or is in research, and that's how they form a relationship. Regardless of what you do, connect it to SHPE. And for you, future leaders, um, if a leader hasn't reached out to you already, reach out to them. Don't be afraid. Again, we're not scary. We're very friendly. We're here to help you. So tell us how to help you. Normally, we can't help you if we don't know how to help you. So feel free to what's it called? Take lead and go to us and be like, hey, I'm really interested in this. Can you help me? Or can you guide me and find a person that will help me? A lot of the time we'll say, yeah, I got you. Or I know someone that can help you. So don't be afraid to take lead.
All right, so now we're going to get a little bit more into the actual leadership training. We're going to be talking about the value of training. But before we talk about that, we got to talk about committees a little bit, because everybody has different ideas of what SHPE committees are. We're going to be talking about mostly the Cal Poly Pomona SHPE committees, because that's what we're most familiar with. But anyway, so SHPE committees, typically some of the key features are that each committee has a particular goal or objective. So for example, for us, the mentorship committee runs the mentorship program, or the professional development committee runs a professional development symposium. So they all have a specific task or a goal that they're oriented around. The second thing is that they're kind of independent from the executive board. Yes, the executive board oversees them and kind of helps them out with certain things or issues that may come up, but they host their own events and they do that somewhat independently of the executive board, so that not too much of the work is on the executive board. And just to give you guys an idea of how involved these committees are in our chapter, they host about 70% of our events. So that's 70% of the events not hosted by the executive board, which is, it really allows us to host a lot more different types of events than we could if it was only the executive board. The way they're structured, they have 3 different types of people in the committee. You have your e-board liaison. So this person is on the e-board and they're assigned to that committee to oversee and also to attend the committee meetings and attend the e-board meetings and communicate between those two what's going on that the other group needs to know about. So their main role is to facilitate the communication. Then your second person is the committee lead. So this person is not on the executive board. And this is actually the person who schedules the meeting, makes the meeting minutes, runs the meeting, and delegates tasks to the other committee members. And they're also the person who is the main point of contact for the board liaison. So this is the person who's really running the committee. And then, of course, you have your general committee members. And these people, a lot of their responsibilities include picking the types of events that they want to host. For us, the e-board doesn't always tell the committee what sort of events to host. They're free to pick whatever types of events they want. And then they also plan the event and they run the event and they even complete the CMT afterwards because it was their event. So you can kind of see how independent these committees are supposed to be. If we could go to the next slide. Okay, so that independence is what we want to build up to, but a committee doesn't start by being independent. At the start of the year, often you get a bunch of, freshmen, sophomores. They've never really seen what SHPE does. They don't know what SHPE is. They may never have had a leadership position before. So how does this group of people go from being very new and fresh to being independent? So the way we see it is in stages. And in these stages, your executive board liaison provides some guidance, and then the committee delivers some results. And kind of through that process, the committee becomes independent. So for us, for the first half of the fall semester, usually we see a lot of guidance and activity from the e-board liaison. So the liaison has to teach the members, how do you plan an event logistics? Like, oh yeah, we need to pick a date. We need to pick a time. Those sort of basic things. And then they also teach them how to make flyers, how to make RSVP forms, and then after the event, how to fill out the CMT. And then you can see the committee members learning these basic skills that they need for how to run an event. So that's typically around when their first event is. Then in the second half of fall, maybe their second event, you can give them a little more freedom, give them some more broad challenges to work on. So it could be something like writing an email to a professional to invite them to come to the event, or running their own committee meetings. Because typically at the start, the e-board member has to help out with running those committee meetings. And as you give them more tasks, you'll see them completing the tasks and you'll be able to build trust. And this trust is really essential. This is where we see a lot of people struggling when they're first joining the e-board and first going through this process. Because the next step is gradually stepping back from the committee and letting them run their own events and run their own meetings. If you haven't developed this trust, knowing that the committee is going to be able to get things done on their own, it's really hard to step away. We want to kind of keep babying them, and we have to realize that it's okay. We can take off the training wheels now. So that's a really key part of this, building that trust. But once you step back, oftentimes you'll realize that they've gained all these skills and they're building this great confidence. And it's a really rewarding experience to see them grow. And then the next step is right before elections, you want to look to your committees for potential leadership paths. So if we could go to the next slide. Okay, so we have identified 3 different paths from those 3 different positions. The first path is to go from committee member to committee lead. And these people are really enthusiastic about the committee. They're motivated by the committee's mission, and they really want to help out and continue in the committee. And typically, they've already mastered those basic event planning skills that we talked about. So that's one category of people. The next category is people who want to continue in the committee, but not necessarily take on more leadership. And that's completely okay. Um, there's nothing wrong with just staying a committee member your whole college career. So these people, they may be in the committee and they want to help out the committee, but maybe they're not interested in leading for whatever reason. Maybe they have too many other time commitments. Maybe they have a research project that they're working on the side. So there could be reasons that they don't want to take on more leadership, and you don't have to push them to. Um, and then these people are typically still building those basic event planning skills. Then the third group of people is the e-board candidates. So these are the people who are really, really looking for more leadership experience and more responsibility. And these people typically already mastered those event planning skills. And these are the people who you want to kind of push and guide towards those e-board positions that you think are going to be a good fit for them. And if you are not currently in a committee, you might want to consider which paths of these is right for you, which category kind of describes where you are at now or where you want to be in the future. And then, of course, you always want to consider which position aligns with your goals. If you want to be a leader when you get out of college and maybe join management, then maybe you should be looking towards e-board versus if you want to do more research, maybe you should take your time to do more research. So make sure that you align your SHPE position with your goals.
Awesome. So now you've gained some sort of experience, you've trained your members a little bit. The next step is to continue challenging them to grow. And there's really three main categories in which you can do this. One being career development, two being academic development, and three being personal development. So for career development, it's some of the typical things that we normally hear, right? Maybe your student is interested in getting better at networking. So maybe what you'll do is you'll invite them to a professional networking event, or you'll invite them to some sort of networking event and you'll introduce them to some of your connections if you're comfortable with that, right? Basically just getting them to practice and really develop in that area. For academic development, maybe your student has mentioned that they want to join a technical project, but they don't know where to start or how to find the correct technical project for them. So maybe you'll help them with some of the research, or you'll connect them with certain teams that you know or leaders that you know, right? And that can kind of help guide them start the process. Or for personal development, maybe it's mental health that they want to work for or work towards. They've told you maybe they feel a little bit overworked. They haven't been, giving themselves breaks or something like that. And they really need someone to keep them accountable, to take breaks and really just relax sometimes. So maybe you'll be that person who will check in with them once in a while. Hey, how are you doing? Right? How was your week? Or when you notice that they're stressed, you'll be able to point it out and just tell them, hey, let's go grab a cup of coffee. We need to relax, right? You're there to challenge them to grow as an individual, in all aspects of their life. So really, again, go back to the investing in your members and understand, why did they join SHPE and where do they want to be? And then I'll pose y'all a question. What are some areas that you have helped someone with or someone has helped you with? And once again, feel free to put it in the chat or kind of unmute yourself real quick. And we'll shout out a couple of them. Does anyone have anything?
Elevator pitches?
Yeah, right? Elevator pitches. Or I'll post something else, mock interviews, right? Maybe you have an interview for the conference and you're like, ooh, I've never had an interview before. So maybe you help them do a mock interview. You're like the interviewer and they're the interviewee, right? There's a lot of those. Setting your priorities, right? Help, talk, have deep conversations with them and help them analyze. Getting into undergraduate research. Yeah, right?
I had a ton of help with that.
Yeah, cool. Was mock interviews, right? See, mock interviews are popular. So nice. So these are all ways that you've helped someone or someone has helped you. So sometimes once you move up the ladder, um, feel free to do that for someone else too.
All right. So now that they've really stepped into a leadership position, either the executive board or a committee lead, you want to help them to continue to refine their leadership skills. So before you do that, though, you want to make sure that you take the time to celebrate them with them, because getting into a leadership position is really a huge accomplishment, and they may not realize that. So you want to make sure you take the time to say, "Congrats, you're a leader now," and just kind of whatever celebrating means to them. I don't know. Maybe you go out for ice cream, and that'll be a fun thing for you guys to do. Um, yeah. So after you celebrate, you want to continue to refine those leadership skills. And there's a couple different ways you can do this and different techniques that you can practice with them. But some of the more common ones that I've seen or I've worked with people on are the team management skills. And a common one is delegating versus bossing. So, what's the difference between me assigning you a task versus me bossing you around? How do you make sure that it's clear that you're just delegating and not trying to boss people around? Another one that's very particular to SHPE is the multidimensional relationship that we have with people. Because in SHPE, we all know we're all friends at the end of the day, but at the same time, we also want to make sure that we get stuff done. You know, uh, Karen, she's the president. She has to be friends with all of the executive board, but she also has to make sure that we get our work done at the end of the day and really be our manager as well. So figuring out how to handle that multidimensional relationship can be difficult at first. Another thing that you can work on is common areas where people have trouble. So typically, we all start at the beginning of the year with a ton of motivation and energy, and we're just ready to go do this and accomplish all these goals. Then midterms come and finals and family stuff, and we may kind of lose our momentum and our motivation. And you want to make sure that as a team, we continue to renew that motivation and maintain that motivation throughout the whole year. So you can work with people on how to do that as a team. Another thing that you can work on is how do you handle when committee members are not completing their tasks on time? So this is a fairly common one, especially at the beginning of the year when people are just getting into their roles. You have to work on, how many times do you remind them? And then at what point do you really sit down and have a talk with them? And what do you say in that kind of a talk? So these are common problems, things that you can work with them on to help them develop as a leader. And then if you are not yet a leader or still looking on improving some of your skills, you can consider what are some of the leadership areas where you want to improve. There may be some areas that you think you're really good at, and there may be some areas that you want to improve. It's a good idea to really identify those in yourself. Or if you're not sure, you can ask your current leadership, hey, what are some areas that you think I could improve on? And then they may even give you ideas for how to improve on those.
Nice. Y'all are funny in the chat. All right, now let's talk about internship or shadow programs. We call them internship, but for the most part, they're known as shadow programs. So these programs are really there set in place to kind of give you a peek at what leadership is, right? What is it going to look like? Spill the tea, right? So for us, or just in general, a lot of these internship programs have at minimum these 4 components. They might have more and they might be a little bit more elaborate, but we're only going to focus on these 4 components. So the first one being, whenever you are part of an internship program, you want to revisit their why. Why do they want to be a leader in SHPE and not any other organization? And this is not to be like, oh, please tell me why you're not choosing another organization over me. It's really to know what their drive is, right? What's going to drive them through some of the hard times that they'll be facing as a leader, right? And this will typically lead to remembering all the accomplishments they did, some of the good memories with SHPE, and it'll make you feel like warm and fuzzy inside. Yeah, I definitely had those moments. So that's your first component. Your second one, if you're comfortable with the individual, you're going to be talking about the strengths and weaknesses, right? So the first question you might want to like talk about is why they're a good fit for that position, right? And that's only if you truly believe. But in general, they will be, right? So let them know why. A lot of the times, they go to positions like, "Ooh, I want to run for vice president, but I don't know if I'm a good fit or if I'm ready for this." If you do believe that they are, tell them, "Hey, I think you would be a great candidate because X, Y, and Z," right? Reinforce their ability to lead. And then again, kind of to pair that, you also want to tell them what you foresee them struggling with, right? Identify areas of growth and let them know so they can focus on them even before starting leadership, right? Oh, this is something that I'm going to face. I need to come up with some sort of solution to kind of overcome the situation. It really will make them a way better prepared leader. The third component is talking about the realities of leadership. Now, I would like to lie to you and say that leadership is this like picture perfect thing. But I'd be lying again. So really tell people what to expect. What should they be expecting? And also tell them what do you wish you would have known. A lot of you have been in leadership for roughly a year now. Tell them what you wish you would have known. Don't allow them to reinvent the wheel, right? Let them start at a higher platform than what you started. And what I mean by the reality ship, I mean, talk about the good, the bad, and the ugly, right? Talk about those moments where you're talking to a member and they're letting you know how impactful the things you've been working on are to them, right? Those things that make you feel warm inside and, feel accomplished at the end of the day. But then also talk about some of those frustrating moments when you have to work with that team member that doesn't seem to be doing their task no matter how many times you tell them, right? Basically, by talking about these realities, um, you're checking for their attitude, right? Despite the good and the ugly, are they still up for the challenge, right? And then the last component really is understanding that leadership is unique. And a good question to ask would be, how would you describe a good leader, right? And what you'll notice by asking that question is you're already going to get a bunch of variants, right, of what people dictate a good leader is. Um, and basically, why we talk about this is because a lot of the times people come into leadership and they look up to the individual who's currently in that position. And they're like, oh my God, I really love this e-board member. They're very charismatic. They have their time management together and like all this good stuff, right? I want to be just like them. And that's good, right? It's honestly really cool that they want to be just like you. But what that sometimes can turn into is them wanting to become kind of an exact copy of you, which is not fair to them because one, they're a unique individual, and two, they can bring something new to the table as well. So you have to let them know, like, hey, I'm flattered that you look up to me and that you want to be just like me, but know that you can also bring something to the table and that whoever you are as an individual can also be an effective leader like me. So basically, in short, role models are essential, but you can be a role model too. And for you, future leaders, um, learn that internship is not always just for running for positions. Join to learn more about leadership or, you know, more about who the individuals leading are. I know my first year in SHPE, I joined internship for a position that I wasn't running for. And the reason I joined it was because I wanted to learn more about this individual. I was looking up to this one e-board member and I was really curious to know like what their drive was, what their logic was, what made them them. So I joined, I had a good time, really with no commitment, just having conversations, getting to know them. And that was a really valuable experience for me. So don't look at it as just, hey, I'm going to be running for this position. Look at it as, hey, I'm getting to know this individual and some of the drives that they have. So I encourage you all to try it at least once. It's pretty cool.
All righty. So now we're going to fast forward a bit and finally, you're getting to hand off your leadership position to somebody else and let go of the responsibility, right? Wrong. So once you're no longer a leader, you still have a responsibility to that leadership position that you had. And that responsibility is now mentorship. Um, and this mentorship position is really important. And it's something that can really help out the person who's taking over your position. Um, so the first thing that you want to remember is that you always want to be there to support the person who's taking over your position. You always kind of want to be there to be their number one cheerleader and make sure that they always feel like they're supported and kind of help their confidence as they're going through this position and as they experience some of the struggles that you know that they're going to experience. The next thing that you want to do is kind of let them know that they can ask you questions and that they can be this mentee, mentor. You can have that kind of relationship and let them know that they can ask for help. Something that's important to notice or consider when you're in this position is that being a mentee and learning how to ask for help is a skill that people need to develop. I know when I first joined eBoard and people offered to help me, I didn't really know what to ask or how to ask questions, or I felt like if I asked, it's something that I should already know, so it kind of looked like not too smart. So you want to make sure that you recognize that they may be kind of uncomfortable with this and help them out and help them feel as comfortable as they can with asking questions. And I also put a little tip here. Remember, nobody likes to ask questions, but everybody loves to help. So honestly, if you ask a question, you're just giving someone an opportunity to have fun and enjoy helping you. So it's a good thing to remember. The next thing is to be a little bit careful. Know your boundaries when you're a mentor. Sometimes we kind of want to overstep our boundaries because we're so used to being in this position and having all these responsibilities and taking care of these things. And it can be a little bit difficult to let go of that and trust that this new person is going to do their job just as well or even better than you did. So just make sure that you know that you're there to guide and support them, not to do their job for them. And then finally, remember that you want to reach out periodically, um, and then share your perspective when asked. So make sure that you continue the contact throughout, your whole year, and then even beyond that. You want to continue to reach out and continue to build that relationship there, but you don't want to force your opinion on someone. So when they ask questions, share your perspective, but don't tell them what to do. Um, it's a really unique role being a mentor, and it's something that can be very rewarding as well. And then finally, just make sure that you share your wisdom. You've been through all this position, you've been through, you know, many ship positions possibly. You've become wise, so share your wisdom. Take that opportunity. And then, of course, if you are a future leader, you can practice mentorship in whatever role you have now. So you can consider things like, who do you want to learn from? Are there certain people on the executive board that you look up to? Or maybe even not on the executive board, just people in the club. It doesn't have to be an official mentorship mentee relationship. You can just ask them questions. And then also consider, what kind of questions can you ask? Um, Sometimes it's good to reflect for yourself what things you want to learn and then tailor some questions for that. Okay.
Cool. So we've hit the end. Now let's summarize everything you've learned in very simple terms. So step one is really getting to know your members and get to know them past the very simple things like what's your major or, what are you doing, right? Get to know who they are as a person. Step number two is investing in your members. Get to know why they're in SHIP and where do they want to be and connect it all to SHIP. Number three is understanding the value in training. Really take the time to introduce them to this new world that is SHIP. Teach them what the concept of networking is and how to do it. Teach them how to write emails, those little technical skills. Step number 4, challenging them to grow, right? And we've already talked about this, but really challenge them to grow as an entire individual. So academically, professionally, and personally. Number 5 is refining your leadership. So really talking about some of those technical soft skills like delegating versus bossing around or being a multidimensional leader. Number 6 is your internship or shadow programs. So revisit their why, right? Find their drive, find their attitude about leadership, and then use this time also to reaffirm their ability to lead. And number 7 is mentorship. So knowing that way after they've gotten the leadership position, that your job's not done, that you're going to be there to be their cheerleader and you're going to be there to support them in succeeding in this position. So cool. Now that we've summarized everything, thank you all for coming to our presentation. I'll leave our slide up for our contact information. You're all more than welcome to reach out to us at any point in time to talk to us. But right now, we'll open it up to questions via the chat, or if you want to mute yourself, we'd be more than happy to.
Awesome. Thank you guys so much, Karen and Nicole. And yeah, like they said, if you guys have questions, put in the chat or go ahead and unmute yourself.
I'll get started with a question. Right. I really love the content here, and it spoke to a lot of things you should do. Is there anything from your experiences of stuff that you've done to try engaging members that did not work? Can you speak to any things that you shouldn't do?
Trying to think of something specific. Do you have anything, Karen?
I was like, I think a basic one is like, again, with the priorities and boundaries, knowing what people's boundaries are, right? So if they tell you specifically like, oh, if they've already kind of established like, hey, this is what I'm looking at a ship, right? Or this is what I want to do this semester, like, don't try to overstep it too much. Maybe you might want to push that just in case, but like, don't really just respect that, because there's some people who do come with certain like boundaries and stuff like that. So just always be respectful of people.
Awesome. Thank you.
Any other questions? Don't be afraid. We're here to answer your questions or any concerns. I don't know. How effective were your methods over the virtual environment? Nice. I love that question. Nicole, you want to answer that?
Yeah. I'd say definitely it was harder to implement some of these techniques virtually. You know, usually in person, it's super easy to like invite people to places or sit down and have a conversation with them casually. Those sorts of things don't tend to happen now. So I would say we were still effective, a little bit less, but we had to be a lot more intentional with what we were doing. Like I was talking about the hiking, setting up hiking with people, like I had to consciously do that and be like, oh yeah, I should invite these people who are, you know, becoming to be ship leaders and they're developing themselves. I should make sure that I invite them. It was a lot of conscious decisions that we made. Usually before the meetings, we would just kind of casually walk around and chat with people, and it wasn't anything official. But now, since things are virtual, we had to make it official that we have a session before that's going to be breakout rooms, and make sure that we include that into our meeting, because if we don't make it official now, it doesn't happen. So yeah, I think it can definitely still be effective so long as you make sure that you do it very intentionally.
Hope that answered your
I
question.
think we had more questions in the chat.
Yeah, I'm like, that's all, like, just in case we run out of time. But I'll answer the next one. So what is CPP Ship doing now in transitioning for the new board, and how soon should chapters start? So actually, this is perfect because we just had elections, and we are just about to start transition next week. For us, we're starting to find what our like good medium is. We've been through an iterative process, kind of what transition should look like. But this year, we're looking to extend our transition until the end of the academic year. Normally, we would transition right after elections. So we're doing a lot of like pairing type of activities, but still challenging and bringing our new e-board up with us. So they'll have like cool projects that they'll do and all that cool stuff. In terms of how soon your chapter should start, it really is up to you. But I would say give yourself enough time to start that mentorship relationship and kind of almost, I don't want to say handhold, but like walk them with you in some of the normal day-to-day stuff that you'll do.
Training wheels. Training
Yes,
wheels are
training
important at the
wheels.
start.
Yeah, so in the summer, you're like, bye. Just kidding. No buys. Remember, it's mentorship after.
Okay, then question from Leo. For a smaller chapter with no committees, how should they go about starting committees? So I think one of the things that we've seen, first, when you're starting committees, start small. Don't try to start with 10. We have like 10 committees in our Cal Poly Pomona SHPE. Start with like 1 or 2. And then the other thing I would suggest is try to set up a committee that's going to be a committee that can work throughout the year. So the committees that we've seen that are most successful are typically the ones that have a program associated with them, not just one event. Some committees that have like only one event, we've had like a banquet committee in the past, and they're only active for like half the year. That's really not what you want. You want them to be active the whole year. So start with a committee like a mentorship committee that starts out the mentorship program by pairing everybody, and then continues the mentorship program by hosting follow-up events. Yeah, so committees that have something to do all year round tend to do the best.
Awesome. Thank you again, Karen and Nicole.